Dali, hindi ko makita yung video ko. Good day, everyone. We will start in 2 minutes. You may post your greetings in our chat box, and then later on post your questions in our Q&A tool. For those in our YouTube stream, you can use chat to post your questions. Please make yourselves comfortable. Panakot kung 3 o'clock na. Warm greetings to all of you. It's nice to be with you again after our Series 1. Welcome to the ASEAN-QA Online Forum 2020 Series 2. The topic of our panel discussion today is Going Digital, Learning from the Learners. For his opening remarks, here is the President of the ASEAN Quality Assurance Association, Mr. Jamaluddin Ibrahim. Jamal will now deliver his opening remarks.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, Jamal, it's your turn.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much to our MC, Lucille. On behalf of the ASEAN-QA Association, I would like to thank the organizing committee and also our host, University of Potsdam in Germany, led by Frank Dademeyer and Benjamin Zhou. We also would like to thank our appreciation to other partners, ASEAN Quality Assurance Network, AQAN, German Academic Exchange Services, TAAD, Semio Regional Center for Higher Education and Development, Semio Rahat, ASEAN University Network, AUN, German Rectors Conference, and European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education for the support to make this online forum a reality. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum, very good day to everyone. I wish to thank those who participated in the first online ASEAN-QA Forum 2020 series that was conducted on 23rd July 2020. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to the online ASEAN-QA Forum 2020 series that revolves around the theme Drivers for Change, Quality Assurance in the Times of Disruption and Innovation. Today's forum is the second in the series that will culminate in the fourth online forum in November 2020. In line with our forum theme, our session today will focus on the topic, Going Digital, Learning from the Learners. This will center on the experiences of students during the shift to online teaching and learning, and how higher education institutions have engaged them in quality assurance processes. Today's activities hopes to concretize one of the association's 3 goals, which is dissemination and sharing of best practices in quality assurance among higher education institutions in the region and beyond. We are grateful to have the opportunity to listen to the voice of our learners in a panel discussion with students from Atmajaya Catholic University, Indonesia, Mahidol University, Thailand, Phnom Penh International University, Cambodia, University of Potsdam, Germany, and University Tenaga Nasional, Malaysia. After the panel discussion, there will be question and answer session for all of us to participate in. I'm confident that we will all learn from each other. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. May I now present to you Dr. Kaltis Tiratiti, Executive Director, ASEAN University Network, for his welcoming remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President of the ASEAN-QA Association, dear panelists, participants, partners of ASEAN-QA, organizers. I consider it one of the highest honors to get a chance to welcome you all here today to the current series of ASEAN QA Forum, organized by the ASEAN QA Association. The topic that introduced by the president for this series on the learning from learners are very much to my heart, and the voice of the students and their perspectives are not only the life and soul of the quality practices in our universities, but also the key inputs into which our education development can go on and progress in a very desirable way. So I really appreciate the organization of this forum that put emphasis on hearing the voices from the representatives of the students. And I like to welcome all participants to this forum, all of those who are from 11 countries in Southeast Asia. And if you are students, please do express your voices and opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jamal and Dr. Choltis. Thank you. May I now introduce to you our moderators for today's panel discussion. Dr. Ronald Alan Mabunga is the Vice President for Research, Planning and Quality Assurance of the Philippine Normal University in Manila, Philippines. An alumnus of the ASEAN-QA Train IQA program third cohort, Dr. Mabunga is the former Dean of the College of Graduate Studies and has also served as the Planning and Quality Assurance Officer of the same university. His research and teaching interests are in the areas of quality assurance, conflict resolution studies, educational leadership and management, and global citizenship education. Ms. Minay de Klerk is the Hybrid Learning Project Manager at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. She is responsible for the strategic management of her university's expanding portfolio of hybrid and online programs in order for the university to meet the evolving needs of adult learners. Ms. de Klerk holds a master's degree in business administration from the University of Cape Town. As a current PhD candidate, she is researching traditional university shift to online teaching and learning through the lens of complex systems thinking. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mabunga and Ms. de Klerk.
Good morning, colleagues. It's very, very nice to be here this morning. It's a real privilege. Is my co-moderator with me?
Good day, Minay. How are you doing?
Great, great. Right, colleagues, we are going to take over now and we're going to introduce the panelists to you in a second. But before we do that, we'd like to do a little bit of an icebreaker. So that is something we've learned in the online space, works quite well. We'd like to invite everybody from the audience to do a little exercise with us on Mentimeter. So you will see my colleague Maya sharing her screen, and she will show you a access code to Menti. You will be able to click on, there we go, fantastic. So you can scan that QR code. What you would do is you will take your phone and you will show it as if you're going to take a little picture of that QR code. It'll take you straight to menti.com, and we'd like you to answer 2 questions for us there. The other option is to click on, or just go to type in menti.com in your browser, and you type in the code 3754042. So this little code you see there on the screen. So I'm going to repeat that, and don't close your Zoom, just go to your browser, type in menti.com, and then it'll ask for a code. You type in 3754042, and then there's 2 questions we're posing to you today. You can also see the direct link to the Menti question in the chat. Okay, so the questions we are posing to you today is, what is your role at your university, firstly? And thereafter, we're asking you how you feel about online teaching and learning in general. And that's going to generate a nice word cloud for us. I can already see a bit of your responses, lots of challenging, some excited, some anxious. Oh, there's very interesting things coming in here. 24-hour access, lots of uncertainty, freedom, potential, saves time, but inadequate. That's how we all feel. So please keep on typing. It's making a wonderful word cloud. And then in terms of your roles, it's also very interesting to see we have lots of lecturers and academic staff here, a good portion of students, a good portion of quality assurance staff, and a bit less as expected, but we're very glad they're here, our university leadership and others. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes still, and then we're going to share the results with you. There we go. Thank you for sharing the results already. We can see it on the screen there. We've got more than 140 participants saying, so all in all, lots of lecture and academic staff. It's wonderful to see. And then the second one, if you just click on to the right there, Maya, you'll see there's a little button that goes to the right. There at the bottom of your screen there, that's the one. You click there. And it's how do you feel about online teaching and learning in general? And we can see this lovely word cloud. Thank you for sharing that. And as expected, most of us feel it's really challenging, but there's lots of exciting, lots of interesting and other words. Some people are neutral, scary, inadequate, stressed. So at least we're all in this together, as I say. And seems like we've got the general feeling it's challenging, but what an interesting time. So I'd really like to thank you for engaging in our little icebreaker. We're now going to introduce the panel to you. I'm going to hand over to my co-moderator to introduce the first 3, and then we'll go from there.
Good day once again, and thank you, Mine, for facilitating that quick survey using the Mentimeter, which is one of the things that can be used actually by our professors and by our teachers doing the online teaching and learning activities. So it is my honor and privilege to introduce the first 3 student panelists for this online forum on going digital learning from the learners. So at this point in time, it is my honor to introduce Nicolette Kizia. Nicolette is a 3rd-year student of Industrial Engineering Department, Faculty of Engineering from Atmajaya Catholic University in Indonesia. She is actively engaged in student organizations and participated as member of committees for several activities and workshops. Nicolette is also an assistant at the Innovation Laboratory with the responsibility of guiding the junior students in taking courses related to design, product, and innovation. She regularly participates in providing feedback on the learning process in her study program. The second student panelist is Santi Silairat. Santi is a student of Master of Science in Health Science Education at the Faculty of Medicine, Siriraj Hospital at Mahidol University in Thailand. He is actually a medical doctor with specialization in pulmonary medicine. Santi also holds a master's degree in hospital administration. Welcome, Santi. And the third panelist is Champai Mong. She is an MBA student at Phnom Penh International University, or PPIU, in Cambodia. Champai is currently in her 2nd semester as finance major student. She is also a working staff in her university and has participated in meetings that discuss design and implementation of online teaching and learning at PPIU. So we welcome Nicolette, Santi, and Champai. Minay?
Right. So for our next two panelists, let me just quickly get my notes. I've got all my details right of these lovely people. Our next panelist is Mariana Noleto Wonderly. She's a student of the Master Program National International Administration and Policy at the University of Potsdam, Germany. She also works as a research assistant at the Center for Quality Development at the University of Potsdam. Her role is to assist in the projects developed in the area of quality assurance that support external quality managers and institutions to set up and enhance their internal quality management systems. And then finally, last but not least, Noorfara Shazana Rashidi is a second-year Bachelor in Accounting student at the College of Business Management and Accounting of University Tenaga Nasional in Malaysia. She is the Vice President of the Student Council. Recently, she was invited as a guest in TV3 Malaysia to talk about online education. She is a recipient of the Gold Award Foundation in Accounting and a consistent Dean's Lister. Welcome, panelists. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here. I'm going to hand over to Alan to start the discussion for us.
Thank you, Minay. So welcome again to our student panelists. For the first question, and we would like everyone to share your brief experiences on this question. Kindly describe your overall experience with the sudden shift to online teaching and learning during the height of the pandemic and the specific situation in your university. We can probably start with Nicolette.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So the pandemic brought a massive effect to all of us as students. At first, it was shocking since we need to quickly adapt to the online teaching method. I felt that not all teachers have the same level of proficiency in online learning. Some teachers spend a lot of time explaining themselves. It was kind of boring, and I don't really think it's useful. Some of them had prepared the online learning process very well. They made the class more interactive. However, I think it was understandable since the teachers also have to change their way of teaching. But I felt that they have had some improvement after several weeks of doing this online learning. Their teaching methods are actually getting better. And at the exam period, all exams were done online and from home. The burden of doing assignments and exam actually become heavier than the usual because everything needs to be done very fast, and I feel that time flies very fast too. However, this is a new experience for me, and eventually I did finish this term well enough. And that's from me.
Thank you, Nicolette, for that. Can we hear from Santi?
Hi, everyone. For me, my field of study is health science education that I study in Mahidol University. Because of my work, which I'm a medical doctor, as you have introduced me, I chose to study in this course because in this curriculum, they have some subjects that is both available online and available to be studied face-to-face classes. So I choose this course to be some subject to be online and some subject to be in class, especially the ones that needs interaction discussions in the class. So I will choose to be in the class. However, when coronavirus started to strike in March in Thailand, we switched all of the classes to be online. So in terms of adaptation, it doesn't affect me so much because I already study online some of the subjects. But for the classes that need to be in the class, I switch all of this to that. So the sessions that we need a discussion, we need to push everything online, which is very unfamiliar at the first time. We need to use, that time we used a Google Classroom and chat application like Line and Facebook, something like that. So it was not very convenient at the beginning. But after a while, we get used to using all of these applications, and then the improvement of the application that is getting better over time. Like we can do multiple group chats and multiple virtual meeting, something like that. So it's getting better over the time. So now we're feeling happier to study in that way. Yeah, that's from me.
Thank you, Santi. May we hear from Champai?
Yes, thank you. For me, at first, I was invited to join a workshop on pedagogy and andragogy organized by the Faculty of Education and Science, where the main focus was on how to use Google Classroom to manage the online teaching and learning. Actually, the main idea of the workshop was to train the lecturer to use Google Classroom, but I was fortunate to join this workshop too. As a result, this workshop equipped me with skill and knowledge, which I can later apply on my online classroom. Actually, as a student and staff at PPAU, I have a lot of opportunity to get involved in most PPAU affairs, including implementing and designing the online classroom. Yes, that's all.
Thank you, Champai. Let's hear from Mariana.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Well, my experience with the sudden shift to online teaching and learning was relatively smooth. I live in a place with a good internet connection and adequate space and quiet that allows me to concentrate into my studies. So overall, it worked perfectly. And in what concerns the online classes offered by the University of Potsdam, in the beginning, the organization was a bit chaotic. In the first 2 weeks, there was a couple of issues with how some assignments would be dealt with, and also with the overall communication between teachers and students. But the issues, they got solved in the following weeks with more availability from teachers and a better and straightforward communication on what was the expectations, and also some specific information regarding tasks and assignments. So overall, I would say that my experience was quite positive. And throughout the semesters, professors and students, they understood better how to deal with the online world, and the classes went more smoothly. So in my perspective, it was a good experience, and it would be a good idea, even after this pandemic, to continue with some kind of hybrid way of teaching that would maybe combine both traditional and online teaching.
Thank you for that sharing, Mariana. And last but not the least, Farah.
Hi, everyone. So at the beginning of the pandemic, of course, it was quite stressful for students and also lecturers, because I'm not going to lie, since everyone had to blend in with the new system, right? So, but thankfully, my university have already come up with a blended learning concept. So technically, we already have the support system and the support unit for this virtual learning experience. So with that, I think it is safe to say that everyone had adjusted quite well and quite fast with the environment that had with the pandemic.
Thank you so much. I have to say it's wonderful to hear words like adapt and adjust and being responsive. It seems that that's kind of the golden thread so far, that everybody had to adapt very quickly. For I really found it also interesting to Mariana made a good point that it's yes, it's about high-speed internet and digital literacy and all of these things, but you also mentioned adequate space and living conditions, and that is so true. Where you are physically actually makes a big difference when you learn online. But I would like to continue the conversation, and perhaps Champagne, you can answer my next question. We're going to ask specific question to specific panelists now, and I'd like to Farah also to think about this, because I'd like you to answer after Champagne. I'd like to know how did this period of online teaching and learning affect you socially in terms of dealing and communicating with your peers, your teachers, classmates, groups? So more on that social and communication side. I'd love to hear from you, Champe.
Yes, thank you, Ines. For me, the negative impact of COVID-19 include lack of socialization. Mentally, I feel I have not had enough communication with friends. I miss my classmates. I would want to be in a small group to discuss a certain question which assigned by the lecturer. And a face-to-face teaching and learning would make me more confident in asking and get the sense of lecturer idea. And but at the same time, I found it positive because we change our culture of communication. Although we do not meet physically, but we can move on with our study. Yes, that's all.
Thank you so much, Champe. That's very interesting. I like the idea of that we're more confident when we communicate face to face. English is also not my native language. I'm an Afrikaans speaker in South Africa, so I always feel a bit self-aware when I communicate in a text-based environment because it's easier for me to express myself verbally and using facial expressions. So that's a very, very good point. I really found that interesting. Farah, how about you? How did you find communicating with your peers and groups online?
For me, virtual learning has definitely bring a positive impact to everyone, since we can access notes and also lectures, videos anytime and anywhere. And even the lecturers can also add on additional notes for students to do their revision. So in terms of communicating with lecturers, I think it has become much more effective since everything is at the touch of a button, and the lecturers tend to be more often online, and so students can discuss and ask anytime with the lecturers. And one interesting fact also is that the lecturers has also implemented different kinds of platforms for students to do revision on such as they use Kahoot, they also use quizzes, and they also use Padlet. And for me as a student, that is the most interesting thing that I've done. So I had fun learning online despite the stressful period. And in terms of communicating with my peers, with my friends, I think it's still the same because we can still communicate with each other, but only the environment is different. Instead of meeting face to face and speaking face to face with people, but now we talk to a monitor. But for me, as long as a message comes through, I think that is already a positive impact to all students. There's one thing that I've also observed from my friends are the people who are quite introverted. They tend to be more proactive in classes during online classes because in face-to-face classes they tend to be more shy, or maybe they're not confident of the question that they ask to the lecturers. But now since it's online and it's on a monitor, you can just switch off your camera and ask the questions, and nobody will suspect who was the one asking the questions to the lecturer, and they will get fast response from the lecturers. So I think a virtual learning environment has given a very positive impact to the social for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Farah. I really like that idea of a kind of online persona. So how you communicate online might be totally different than the way you do it face to face. And you make a good point about availability. The fact that lectures you would normally see only when you have a lecture or tutorial, and now you have almost another feedback mechanism with them. So thank you both for sharing. I'm going to hand over to my co-moderator for another question.
Thank you, Mine. I'm also interested to what Champai and Farah mentioned in terms of the positive impact of the online or the virtual communication and the importance of the lecturers or the teachers of using different means of communicating with their students. I think that's also very important, as shared by our two panelists. So may I ask Santi, being a medical doctor, so we would like to ask him, what do you think is the effect in terms of the psychological effect, for instance, in terms of mental wellness, and trying to strike a balance between all the tasks in the online learning platform and all the requirements being posed by the professors in terms of its implication to the psychological and mental state of the students. Santi?
Yes. For me, at the beginning, the biggest problem is the time management, because I'm a medical doctor, and also when the COVID strikes, I'm the one who is responsible for this one because I'm a pulmonary doctor. So I have to take care of all those patients. Usually, when I start to study in this course, I will spend my free time to study the course. Mainly, I choose to study online, so I can have my own time to study whenever it's available. So when it started, for the epidemic started, and we have to change from the in-class activities into online, it means that we need to spend the time separately from the free time to do extra work, because especially in the sessions that we did discussions, we cannot do the discussion like the face-to-face thing. We cannot get facial expression or arguing, fighting with each other in the class like we usually do. We have to wait for one another to finish the talk first, so we can do ours. So sometimes we just lost the train of thoughts after everyone is finished. So instead, we try to change into that. We try to finish the content, and then in the discussion, we push it into the discussion board or a chat room, something like that. So it will require extra time. And for me, to add on the extra time to study, it's quite a bit a burden for me at the beginning, because I have to work, and then after I work, I have to come to work at assignments, and then work on the chats, and then do these discussions, something like that. So it could stress out me a little bit at the beginning. But it lasts not a long time. It's just a few weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks, and then you start to get used to it, and you can do it fine. The second problem is that normally when we do the class, before we start the class, we will see our peers in the class. We can share our burden or anxiety or anything that we want to share. We want to complain about our staffs, complain about the teacher or the contents or something like that, anything that we want to talk. But we can't talk like that in the class anymore. So sometimes it affects psychologically in terms of we want to ventilate to other people. And then we can't do that. We just have to ventilate into the monitor, and it's not as fun. Anyway, it's manageable, it's completely manageable, and it's become a happy study after a while. Yeah, that's it.
I like when you said, Santi, it's not as fun as compared to the face-to-face conversation and engagement with the professor, with the lecturers, and with your classmates, certainly. Just for our participants with the Zoom, if you have any question for any of our panelists, you can make use of the Q&A box and just type in your questions, and the committee will be putting together all these questions for our particular panelists. For those who are watching us live on live stream on YouTube, you can also type in on the chat box if you have any question to our panelists. So to proceed, Minei.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Santi. I have to say, I agree with Alan. It's really interesting to hear from a student that's working full-time as well, because that adds a whole new dimension. The fact that time management is such an important skill when you're learning online. And we've learned in South Africa at Stellenbosch University as well, we so easily overburden our students when it comes to online learning because it takes so long. And also we shouldn't underestimate that learning is an emotional experience, and you need that emotional connection. As you say, you need to vent, and we're all in a very stressful period of a pandemic. So not having that is very tricky. So thank you for that authentic share. The next one, I'm going to come back to Santi on this one, but I first want to give Nicolette a chance to respond. It's a bit of a tricky question. I'd like to know, how did this period of emergency remote teaching or online learning affect you economically in terms of resources? So Nicolette, can you respond to that one for me?
Sure. I think we all can agree that the most disturbing thing is the cost of procuring data packages for internet. Because since we did everything from home, we need a lot of data in order to attend our classes. And there must be students whose family finances have been affected by the pandemic. So in Indonesia, the government didn't directly give incentives such as data packages. Rather than that, the government works with a few providers to give free data packages to the students. But in my universities, there are many students that came from different cities and the data connection aren't equal in each city. Therefore, the university is supporting students by collaborating with an internet provider, especially for those that has a poor data connection, by providing a limited number of free data packages. Although it may not help 100%, but more or less this effort has helped the students. That's from me.
Thank you so much. That's interesting to hear. We had the same situation in South Africa where lots of internet providers provided students with data. But I agree with you that that's not everything, Nicolette. Sometimes you need more than that. I know internet speed is also an issue because otherwise it takes you forever to download a video, for instance. So thank you so much for sharing that, Nicolette. Santi, back to you. Can you respond to the same question for me? How did it affect you economically in terms of resources, you or other students that you know?
I totally agree with Nicolette in terms of the internet connection because it is the heart of the online learning. For me, I think the problem that can happen when we have internet connection is the content that has to be live or stream. Like you need a very stable connection and a speed that is good enough. So for my university, there are two parts of the study, which is one is just a live stream thing that if you can join, you can just come and join, and then you can join the activities synchronously with other people. And at the same time, all of these will be recorded. So if you don't have time or you don't have a very stable connection of the internet, you can watch the recorded sessions later, and all other contents can be downloaded when time is available. So you cannot have internet connection right now. You can go to the coffee shop, you get some free Wi-Fi at some spot, and then you can download it and watch it or study it and do assignments later. So yes, economically, internet can be a problem, but it's also manageable if the contents that is provided by the teachers it can be downloaded asynchronously, and all assignments can do when the time and the resources are available.
Thank you so much, Santi. You make a good point that it's possible to adapt to people's different access to internet, but then we have to meet each other halfway. So the lecturers need to know how much internet data and what high speed or low speed internet their students have access to. So it's about adapting, but of course, online learning can also heighten the digital divide, and issues of privilege really comes out when we're learning online. But thank you both, Santi and Nicolette. I'm handing over to Alan for the next question.
Thank you, Minay. Thank you, Santi and Nicolette for those answers. I think I share the same notion in terms of the issue of internet connectivity, in terms of the economic aspect of it, because like 4 of our panelists here are coming from Southeast Asian region, and certainly the issue of economy, or the issue of resources is very critical. That includes the Philippines. So it's not just in Indonesia or in Thailand that it is an issue. So given that context, given that there are really some difficulties being experienced by the families and the students, perhaps we would like to go into the support system that the schools are providing to our students. And at this point, we would like to hear from Mariana, coming from Germany. You mentioned earlier that you're quite privileged because you have very good internet connectivity. So perhaps we would like to know, how were you supported by your faculty members and your school management in terms of the online classes and the online system as a whole? Mariana?
Thank you, Alan, for the question. Well, I believe that in general, the University of Potsdam handled very well this online shift. And I believe the most important aspects of online teaching is actually the support that the university gives to the students so they can feel more secure and safe in this sudden shift. And regarding the faculty members, some professors, they made themselves more available than usual to the students. They provided longer and more flexible office hours where students, they could schedule online meetings to discuss assignments, course content, and also, if it was the case, some personal issues. And they also provided more online alternative content that went in a different way, in a different direction from a pure traditional reading workload, offering sometimes video recommendations and also trying to engage with students in different ways, such as online discussion forums and also small surveys during classes about the content of the course. A big issue that I noticed together with my peers, and there was also a great deal of student complaints about it, was the workload required by the majority of the professors during those online classes. And they would give either the same amount of workload as before or much bigger workload. And that was a big problem for a lot of people that maybe had extra obligations with family members, for example, or were living in an environment that was not really ideal to study or had some kind of issues that they had to face, either financially or health-wise. And some classes, they required a lot of preparation and effort from the students, and that would go beyond what students could actually bear due to the circumstances. But I believe that the majority of the professors, they were quite flexible on that, and they tried to adjust the workload as the semester went and as much as it was possible, because there is some requirements in the content of each course. So some professors, they were a little bit strict on that manner, and that would usually show itself to be a big problem to the learning process, and also frustration, and it would affect the students in all of their aspects in life, including mental health, because it would cause anxiety or such. And regarding the school management, since the pandemic broke out, I believe that they were very transparent on how they were dealing with the issues that came up with this sudden shift. And even sometimes that it would mean that they would still not have answers, but we as students could generally be informed about those steps that the university was taking, and also recommendations and requirements from German authorities on that front as well. One thing that was kind of lacking in the support side was the financial side. It was not ideal. The University of Potsdam did offer some kind of financial support, but they offered to a very limited number of students, and also it wasn't usually wasn't enough, the amount of the support, so there was a lot of complaints in that manner as well. And lastly, I believe that one important point that the university management took in this support role was that there was a bigger offer of student counseling in terms of psychological support. They provided students with online and per phone counseling as well, and also a night phone line where students, they could call even during the night if they had some psychological troubles. And they were usually formed by student groups within the university context, willing to help other students navigating to the sudden change and troubles that this pandemic may have caused them.
Thank you, Mariana. That's quite a comprehensive answer actually, and I'm taking down some notes, and it appears that the support coming from the management and coming from the faculty is not just limited to the system, like having a learning management system. It's not limited to infrastructure. It should also include, as you were saying, support in terms of mental wellness, as mentioned by Santi earlier. It also includes the support in terms of the overall design of the curriculum, perhaps, or of the syllabus, meaning looking at the pedagogical approaches being introduced by the lecturer. What are the strategies, for instance? What are the requirements? What are the assessment tools? Because otherwise it will, as you were mentioning, Mariana, somehow it becomes quite more exhausting and more difficult on the part of the students. But I bet it is also difficult on the part of the lecturers themselves. Being a lecturer myself, it's good to hear from you for us to consider being more flexible, and if I may add, probably being more compassionate as well, making sure that the activities or the assessment that the lecturer would provide is something that is realistic and that is doable on the part of the students. So, Mine, I'll turn over to you again.
Thank you, Ellen, for also sharing your perspective from a lecturer perspective. That's quite interesting. Yes, and Mariana, thank you so much for that comprehensive answer. You sketched so well the kind of holistic need for support, everything from financial to mental health, to support for the workload. And it's wonderful to hear that your university took the initiative for a night phone line. I think I'm going to suggest that to Stellenbosch University as well. All right, so on to our next question. This one, I'd like to, Mariana, I would also like you to respond to this one, but I'm first going to give Nicolette a chance. It kind of builds on Mariana's response, because if we speak about support, we need to also think about how we communicate with students and vice versa. So I'd like to find out from you, how did your university engage you in discussions on learning and teaching online? I'd like to know if any of your feedback was collected, and if they did collect your feedback, how was that done? And then finally, if they collected your feedback, how was it addressed, if at all? So it's a mouthful of a question, and I'm handing that over to you, Nicolette.
Thank you for the question. So at the end of every semester, my university conduct a survey regularly. The surveys are used to improve the teaching method. So regarding for the online learning, the university actually held a special survey to collect feedback from the students at the university and department levels. As far as I know, my department has addressed the students' feedback. So during the semester break, they improved the teachers' capability in conducting online learning. For example, they held workshops about flipped learning method and how to make tutorial videos. So the teachers also discussed with laboratory assistants to make learning videos about the use of laboratory equipment, so that students can continue to learn about laboratory equipment even though they are online. So I guess, yes, they did take some actions from the feedback that are collected. Yeah, that's all from me.
Thank you so much, Nicolette. It's interesting that the online space allows us perhaps to get feedback quicker, because we now today that very quickly in a form, or just like we did now with Mentimeter, quickly just gauging what people need and being responsive to that. And it sounds like such a simple solution, making videos of lab equipment, but people don't necessarily think about that. So it's wonderful that they responded so quickly. And Mariana, since this kind of relates to your previous question, I'd like you to respond to this one as well on feedback.
Of course, thank you for the question. So before this online shift, it was usually made one survey at the end of each semester, but now this changed a little bit, and the majority of the professors, they did 3 online surveys throughout the semester that they tried to collect students' feedback. One was done in the beginning, the other in the middle, and the other in the end. And the first survey was about students' expectations concerning the course and this new shift to online teaching. And the second one was more about how students were feeling about what was going on until so far and in the online environment and their experience until that point. And in the end, it was more a feedback about how things went for them and their experience after everything that they've been through. So the professors, they also made themselves available through the office hours that I mentioned before, in case some students, they wanted to provide some sort of different feedback in a specific area or in a specific way. I believe that my feedback and other students as well, they were partially addressed. Some professors, they showed themselves open to adaptation and changes. For example, in the workload problem, there was a constant complaint of the students. The majority of the professors, they did reduce the requirements and workload, even if just in small proportions, they did adapt into that feedback. But some, they were a little bit inflexible. In my perspective, one feedback that was not very well addressed was about class presentations. Some classes, they required students to prepare presentations and upload into the system. So the colleagues would be able to watch and prepare for the classes and engage in a better way when the classes would come. But other courses, they required live presentations, which was usually a problem due to connectivity issues and technical issues, and also the amount of presentations that were packed in one class. Sometimes it was too much, and the attention span and student engagement will be usually very low on those classes that require a lot of long presentations. And even after some students' feedbacks about that, the format didn't really change that much in some cases. So I believe that the issue was not really well addressed, but also there is sometimes due to professor inflexibility, but also there are a lot of challenges that goes into changing the whole course structure in the middle of the semester. So I believe that University of Potsdam, they did as well as they could so far, taking into account that is also the first semester that everybody's experiencing this online shift.
Thank you so much, Mariana. I appreciate you kind of sketching both sides of the coin, because on the one hand, I hope one thing that if there's one thing that we learn after this pandemic is how important it is to get student feedback and draw in the student voice into the classroom to shape the curriculum and how we teach. But the other side of the coin is once you ask somebody for feedback and there's no response, that's immensely disheartening. So either we need to be prepared to respond and do something about it, or if it's not possible, which in some cases it's not, to explain why, the purpose of why I can't change my curriculum now or adjust my teaching. If there's just silence on the other side, that's very frustrating. It's like putting up your hand in class and somebody just stares back at you, don't answer you. So very, very interesting to hear. And on that point, I'm going to hand over to Alan for kind of a final wrap-up question for all our participants.
Thank you, Mine, and thank you once again to our panelists for those answers to the different questions, specific questions. At this point, we would like to ask each and every one of you again to respond to this final question. And this is something to do, listening to everyone. Perhaps we can infer that there are the pluses and the minuses in the implementation or in your experiences with with this online learning or going digital in the teaching and learning process. So given your respective experiences, what could have been done better in terms of how your courses were carried out online? So this time we will listen first to Farah. Would you like to start, Farah?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Alan, for the question. For me, I think the most important thing for each university is to have a strong support system. As for Unit 10, we have a teaching and learning center So Teaching and Learning Center actually assists lecturers and students with online learning environment. So if students have any problems regarding online learning, they can quickly ask the Teaching and Learning Center and they will get assistance from them. So as a student, I rely entirely to my lecturers. And for a fact that the university has provided the lecturers with sufficient trainings and also great facilities for them to assist students in proactive in working together with the university to create a better and impactful learning environment.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Farah. I like your idea of being proactive in addressing some of the concerns or some of the issues in this online learning. May we hear from Champai?
Yes, thank you for your question. For my opinion, there are two things that my university could have done better in conducting online teaching and learning. The first one, my university should have done more to train the lecturer on conducting online and teaching effectively and smoothly. So far, I have noticed that not all the lecturer can use the assessment platform effectively. And the second one, uh, my university should have provide more orientation to students on how to use online platform effectively. Yes, that's all.
Thank you, Champai. So it's more focused on capacity building, and the capacity building is not just for the teachers but also for the students. Thank you. May we hear again from Mariana?
Hi, thank you for the question. So from my perspective, there was four biggest issues that I've experienced with online courses. First of all, I already mentioned before, is the workload required by some professors. Second, connectivity issues experienced from some students. Also, financial support from the university, and lastly, assessment of students' feedback. So, as I mentioned before, I believe that a better understanding by the teacher side, due to the circumstances, to understand that sometimes students cannot really comply with the amount of workload. I think that point is really crucial. And it is also important for the professors to be aware of the limitations that an online semester can bring and adapt the tasks and assignments to those circumstances as well. And regarding connectivity issues, I believe that teachers, they could provide their live classes as records as well, because in some classes that was not possible to due to security and private reasons. But that would be very important because some students, they had to miss classes due to personal or connectivity reasons. So it would have be possible for them to catch up on the content afterwards and preventing them from either falling behind or even the sensation of frustration. And in my point of view, concerning the financial support, the university, they did help quite a few students, but I believe that they should have offered more number of students with help, and perhaps a bigger amount that could help them maintain their studies, because I do understand that the institution have difficulties with budgetary issues and so on, but some students, they had real problems with that, and some having even to abandon their studies for a period of time. So that was really harmful for their studies. And also concerning the feedback, the student feedback, even though some professors, they did address them and try to adapt, others they did not, and this kind of inflexibility was usually very harmful for the learning process. So I believe that taking students' experiences and feedbacks into account and also the circumstances would help both sides.
I like your consistency in mentioning those concerns, and you shared earlier the positive impact or the positive effects of those support system, but at the same time, you're able to share also some of the things that could have been done better, which I'm quite confident I'm sure are being addressed by Potsdam University. May we hear now from Santi?
Yes, thank you for the question. For me, I think it's a very good idea to have some options in one course or in one class, that you can do a face-to-face class and also an online class, both options. So because some of the features cannot be provided online. So whenever you want to be online, you can be online and study with each other. And then when you want to socialize, you want to discuss with other people, you can do it also. So it would be a good idea to have both options in one subject. That would be a very good idea. So which Farah has mentioned before, right? That you have a blended courses that we can join. So that's a very good idea. The second one is that because if you put everything online, the one thing that will be missed a lot is socialization. You know, now you have to study with a monitor and sitting alone. And then when you become confused with the contents, you are frustrating and you are anxious about your assignments, or you don't know how to do it. You don't know who to ask. So it would be good to have university to provide a channels for students that come to have chance to meet each other, or to connect to each other, so they can ask questions with peers instead of asking the instructor or lecturer themselves. They might want to ask their friends more than that. They want to ventilate, they want to ask silly question or even gossip with something. They can do that with their friends. So it would be a good thing not to be totally online. And the last one is that whenever you want to do any kind of system to push in online, you have to make the students and also the lecturer to be familiar with the system. Because now there are many options of the online system to be used, like a Zoom, like this, a Google Classroom, or a team that is introduced very lately. I'm not familiar with it myself right now and have to learn how to use it. So whenever the university want to introduce these things, you have to prepare the student beforehand, like a few weeks before the classes start. Otherwise, it will be very frustrating and stressing out students quite a lot. So that would be my opinion.
Thank you, Santi. I like your idea of the optimization or the maximization of the technology on the aspect of still having the socialization between and among the students and the lecturer. And you're correct that there are some applications where you can still organize some activities where the students will be able to more or less share their personal experiences and their thoughts on a particular issue that are very close to them. And so the last but not the least, may we hear from Nicolette?
Okay, thank you, Alan. So based on my personal experience, I believe that the teachers could have done better with the teaching strategy. I wouldn't say explaining all the materials while video conferencing is very effective, because sometimes the students want to ask questions, but there isn't enough time. So I think the teachers may need some improvement on that. I think the university could apply flipped learning method, which approaches from group learning to individual learning. Ideally, the teacher should prepare a video content material beforehand, so the students could understand more and could discuss it more when without needing to explain the whole material. And in the middle of 2020, my university actually has already achieved award from KIAS stars, that is 5 stars for online learning. Therefore, I hope that we can conduct online learning together and better than before. That's from me.
Thank you, Nicolette. And I like your idea of the teaching strategies on the part of the lecturers, making sure that they are effective but still doable, and also being able to really engage the students. All right, so we're almost done actually with the sharing of our from our panelists. I can see that there are already a number of questions. Shall we proceed, Binay, to the
Yes,
Q&A?
we can do a quick audience engagement and then we can go to the Q&A. But before we do the audience engagement, I would just like to thank the panelists again. I've literally ran out of space on my notebook. I've made so many notes. It's wonderful to hear from you, and I'm going to take this back to our university and credit all of you with the ideas. The notion of, as you mentioned, Nicolette, flip learning to allow the flexibility that Santi also mentioned, asynchronous and synchronous, and socialization channels. It's so, I agree with you, Alan. It's something that I think is almost underutilized. We need these social spaces also to, as Santi said, gossip a bit and laugh a bit and be in this pandemic together. But I'd like to kind of hand over to the audience now. So Maya, if you can share your screen again with a link to the Menti, the next Menti exercise. I see we have some questions from the audience. We'll be taking that to the panel in a second, but I want to hear from the audience what their key takeaway was from this panel discussion. And you as audience is also very important for us, because other than our learned panelists, everybody that's here will go down in history as the pioneers that had to shift to fully online teaching and learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. You're all lecturers and students as well at university administrators. So we'd love to hear from you as well. If you can use the QR code again to scan, or you can go to menti.com and type in the code 5706438, and then share with us your key takeaway from this panel discussion. I know it's a tricky one, but just one thing that really stuck with you, or that you found interesting or really valuable, maybe something that you that's a question that was raised for you. Please do share that, and we'll all have a look at the results together in a bit. I'm going to give it a few minutes for that. Lovely. I see the results are already coming in. It's very interesting. You could perhaps share your screen, Maya, with that result page. There we go. Wonderful thing with Menti. It allows everything to come up, and we can still save this and share it with everybody. So everybody's struggling one way or another. How true. Compromise, very true. Everybody had to compromise on different sides. Blended learning, we can touch on that in the discussion now. There are positive and negative things, very true. I heard a lot of things that we want to kind of tease out golden strands and take with us, even if we go back to campus, and other things that we've learned is really not working. Online learning is good, but a human touch is vital. How important. Learning, once again, is an emotional thing. It's a social thing. Support for one another. Student readiness, institutional readiness, very, very interesting. Getting feedback from students and acting on them, that really came out. And once again, if you don't act, communicate, dialogue about why you cannot act. Teachers should be flexible, certainly, and our curriculum needs to be flexible. Education as a whole is making a serious shift. That is very, very true. It's a momental shift. It's really, we're in an interesting historic moment, and it's scary to be a pandemic, and we're going to enter a horrific recession soon. But on the other hand, it's very interesting to be at this moment in history and at that nexus of technology and learning. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to read one more. The university administration faculty must provide student support beyond academics, also mental health. Yes, that's what Mariana sketched for us so well, that holistic support also for mental health, anxiety. We've seen at our university also with not only students and lecturers, but also tutors. So those that have to suddenly, students now shift to the online space to tutor and mentor others. So you're more than welcome to keep on adding your thoughts. We really welcome it. It's a wonderful way for us also to get a sense of what your feedback was. But for now, I'm going to hand us back to the panel. We'd love to use the last bit of the session to ask them some questions from the audience. So Alan, would you perhaps like to pose the first question, the audience question, then I'll take the next one.
Thank you, Mine. There are actually a number of questions already from our audience, and I think these are questions coming from both those who are with us in the Zoom and those who are watching us in the live feed. I have the first question is, from your point of view as a student, what would be the challenges and what are the preparations that should be done for the shift to online learning? This would be very helpful for some colleges and universities that have never done digital teaching and learning before. Can anyone would like to share their answer, their response to that? The question has something to do with the challenges in terms of the preparation that should be done for an online learning modality. Yes, Mariana, I can see your hand.
Hi. Thank you for the question. And I believe the challenges, they present themselves when we're shifting from traditional teaching and online teaching. They just present themselves. And I think the preparation needs to be done while those challenges appear. And I believe that one important point in the preparation is to let the students know each step that the university or the teachers are taking, so they feel more included. Because in this online shift, it's sometimes very confusing and very students sometimes don't know what is going to happen or how the university is going to deal. So it's important that they keep the students aware of what they're doing, even if they still don't have answers, but to put out there how they're dealing with it. And I believe that with online courses, it would be ideal to have a preparation some weeks before the classes start, because sometimes it was very fast and sudden what we needed to do. So I believe it's positive if maybe sometimes that is a little the classes start a little bit later, but if the students are more prepared for this start, I think it's beneficial to all.
Thank you, Mariana. Anyone else who would like to share his or her response? Farah, go ahead.
I would like to add on a bit on Mariana. I think, yes, communication is key, but I think communication between, instead of like lecturers and students, we also need communication between us and our family members. So for instance, if you have classes or maybe if you have online exams, you should communicate with your other family members to let them know that you have classes at this time, so do not disturb me during this kind of hours and something like that. So yes, the only thing for me that is very important in online learning is actually communication. And communication with everyone doesn't mean with students and management, students and lecturers, also students and your peers and also your family members. That's from me.
Thank you, Farah. Santi, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to add on about the workload and the time management. I would like to emphasize so much on the time management because if you want to make the courses online, it means that it based on that you can study asynchronously whenever the time allows. So the assignments has to be flexible with that also. Like if you pose an assignment for a student, you need to give them time, because especially for the courses or the classes that need very much of the interaction, like a work group and a discussion, something like that, because it's sometimes it's harder and take more time to discuss using chat and text, but rather than talk directly. So it would consume more time. So the time management is the key. So if we shift everything into the online courses and you need to do the same amount of work, it will take more time to do it, and it will be stressing out students a little bit. So if you shift all of that to be online, I think we need to consider about the time also. It will be the best.
Thank you, Santi. In the interest of time, because there are a number of questions posted by our audience and our participants here in the Zoom. Mine, would you like to go for the next question, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for your good answers. I picked from a little list of questions, one of them that just jumped out to me. So I'm sorry if I'm messing up our order, Alan, but maybe it's a good question for just a short answer from everybody, because I don't know the answer. How long do you think should an online class last? So if somebody's doing, let's say, a live stream like this, and why I find it so interesting is, I don't know about you, but I find it sometimes, I think Mariano, somebody mentioned it, you don't want to stare at a screen for so long, so your engagement kind of drops. It's not the same as in a face-to-face class, and then there's interconnectivity and. So I'm going to challenge all of you to tell me how long you think an online class should last. So perhaps we can start with Champagne. What do you think?
Yes, thank you, Mine, for your question. In Cambodia now, I think only 2 or 3 months left that we study in online. But when we go back to school, we use hybrid education. We study online and study in the class.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And Nicolette, in your experience, how long should an online lecture, for instance, be?
From my experience, I think 3 or 4 classes in a day is actually very much, because one classes may take for like 40 minutes or so, and yeah, I think it's quite burdensome for some students to stare at a screen for so long, but maybe a little breaks from each class will be just fine.
Yes, so little breaks in between, so you can break it up. That makes sense to me as well. Farah, what do you think?
So based on my experience, I guess the most, because students tend to be more to get quite bored at the end of the classes, and then maybe the lecturers can include some activities in the middle, like you did, Mine, you did the Mentimeter. So sometimes when the lecturer think that where students are bored with the lectures, maybe they can include some games, and then they can ask, and then they can give like a 5-minute break, like Nicolette say. And yeah, that's from me.
Good point, good point. So it's a bit of engagement in between to break just that staring at the screen. Santi, you mentioned a couple of things around asynchronous, and yeah, so in your experience as a working student, how long do you think?
I think if you're doing a content like streaming a lecture, 40 minutes to 1 hour, it's the longest that people can bear, because otherwise they get bored and sleepy. So 1 hour, I guess. But if you make it become a recorded sessions, you can be as long as you want, because students can pause and then come back to catch up later whenever they want.
That's a good point.
For me myself, I usually download the content that is been recorded and to put it in my headphones and then running or something like that, so I can study during my exercise times. It's more flexible for me, so it won't be boring at all if you do that.
That's a good point, Santi, that we all have an audio podcast, and if you, sometimes it's not the most exciting lecture, but you at least can do the dishes while you listen to it. Very, very good point. Thank you. And Mariana, what do you think?
Thank you for the question, and I completely agree with Santi. I believe that each class to be around 40 minutes, 1 hour is the maximum that should be, because the attention span gets lower and the engagement also. And I believe that if we have to have longer classes, as for example in University of Potsdam, we have the possibility of having block seminars that lasts for 4 or 5 hours usually in presence. But in an online environment, it would be ideal to divide those classes into more days and less time. So just adapt into the online world, and also having some breaks in between. I realize that it's really beneficial also to student engagement during the class.
Thank you so much. I think if we summarize then, the notion is that we shouldn't duplicate what we're doing in the face-to-face space, exactly try and do that online, rather give each other a bit more breaks, spread it out a bit, allow for more flexibility. And if you want to record something really, or you want to do something really long, rather record it, perhaps break up the video into smaller snippets or audio podcast and allow for some flexibility. So thank you so much for that. Alan, I'm handing back to you.
Thank you, Minay. I'm just reminded, more than half of our participants here are actually lecturers, and it's really good to hear from our students those insights. They are very useful and very insightful indeed, in trying to remind ourselves as lecturers in terms of the kind of activities that we are organizing for our online students. So this is a very interesting question. What are your thoughts on ensuring that no student should be left behind, regardless of internet connectivity or availability of gadgets or computers? Anyone would like to respond to that? So this is something to do with ensuring that no student should be left behind in an online learning modality. Who would like to answer that question? Yes, Mariana.
Hi, thank you for the question. I believe that it's a quite complicated question because it involves other aspects such as inequality issues and resource issues as well. So it's quite difficult to grasp to ensure that all of the students participate. But I believe that one solution could be to have more asynchronous type of teaching, because in that way the students can engage with the teaching and the learning in their own time and in their own capabilities of resources and so on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariana. And I think I like your idea of the teachers organizing more asynchronous activities rather than synchronous sessions or activities for online students. So that, as mentioned by Santi earlier, whatever you're doing at home or whether you're somewhere else, you can still work with your assignments or read the materials. Anyone else who would like to give an answer to that question? Yes, Santi.
Yes, I think one idea is that to pack all the lessons and assignments into one spot. Like, for example, you can put it all in the CD, and then you can have the students to access all of that. And then you can tell them that you can start with this lesson and then do the assignment number 1 and then hand it by this day as a deadline, something like that. So if you put all this, the only resources you need to do is some computer or some player that can use the CDs, something like that. And to hand out the assignments to the lecturer, you can just send an email or something. So it can be more comfortable for students to do, even though they don't have much resources to keep up with this the study. Anyway, in order to do this, the course has to be completely asynchronous, right? Just put the deadline that you need to hand out that assignment.
Thank you, Santi. Anyone else who would like to give a response to that question? It's interesting what Santi mentioned in terms of the packaging of the materials, the instructional materials. Others are placing it in the flash drives. Others are actually printing them and giving the printed copies to the students as well. Yes, I saw Farah's hand. Farah, please.
Yeah, all right. So as for like my university, we also allow students to come back to the university, but not all of them. Only students who needs the facilities, who needs Wi-Fi, who needs laptops or computers. We provide them with the facilities here. So in order for them to so they are allowed to go back to the campus, but they need to apply for the with specific reasons. And another thing, I think that one thing that can be implemented is also, like Santi said, we can compile it at one place. But instead of like maybe a CD, you can download it online. So like as my university, we use Moodle. And then everything is like lectures. So they have a lecture on before the lecture, before the day. So students can watch the pre-recorded first, and then they can join the lecture afterwards, something like that. So students with difficulties in internet, they can watch the pre-recorded lectures, and students with who has the privilege to with internet and others, they can watch the lecture at the specific time.
Thank you, Farah, for that very insightful sharing. On to the next question, Minei.
Right, thanks so much. I found it so interesting the conversation on data and file sizes. We found the easiest way to actually address it in our context as well is just lectures that use a lot of PowerPoint slides, for instance, to just compress this the file sizes, video file sizes, just make it smaller if you upload something, because it can take forever to download and it can take a lot of data. So once again, there's a bit of onboarding there necessary. I didn't know how to compress a video. I only recently learned, but so we learned. That's part of the process. My question that I'd like to ask, and that comes directly from the audience, is on an aspect we haven't really addressed that much in this conversation, but it's so important, and that is of assessment. So I'd like to know from you, have the way that you're being assessed at the moment, has that changed significantly? I'm assuming so, but has it changed? And has it changed for the better, online assessments and tests, or for the worst? So can you give us just a positive or negative example of how things have changed in terms of assessment? Anybody can put up their hand if they have a response. Mariana, taking the plunge. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your question. Specifically in my case, I study public policy, so it's a Master of Science degree. So our assessments are usually made through essays or scientific papers that we need to write, so not tests per se, exams, but more writing and giving it to professors. So I believe in the case of my studies, this is more flexible because I know that some students, they needed extended deadline for any kind of personal reasons due to the pandemic, and the professors, they were quite flexible when before they usually were not flexible in that sense. Now they were very flexible and understanding. So I believe that this was one thing that got better in that way. And with exams itself, I wouldn't have the experience to say because I didn't go through it.
So in terms of formative feedback and essays and assignments, extended deadlines and a bit of more flexibility there would help. Has anybody else been tested or examined online?
Yeah.
Santi?
Yes. Thank you for the question. For the assessment of knowledge during the course time, we are being assessed all from each session of the study already. Like you give an assignments, and then they will assess you about your performance by the assignments that you hand out. But for the last one is the exam. For my course, they put the exam into the Moodle system that you have to be logged in at a specific time And then at the internet time, they will start that you can access into the exam, and then you have time to answer the question for the time limits, and then you can complete all the answer before the time's up. The problem is you have to be sure that the internet won't screw you at that time. Otherwise, everything will be gone. But anyway, we will be informed beforehand, like weeks before that okay, you are going to have exam on this day, and we need a very stable internet connection. So at this time, so you have to prepare yourself. So we won't be stressed out so much about the exam because we already know before that. Anyway, who knows what's going to happen at that time, right? So that will be a problem, but we are quite prepared.
That sounds very stressful, the idea of your internet bombing out in the middle of an exam. Yeah. I think that's for that reason, because it happened to a couple of our students at Stellenbosch University. We've decided to go for an approach of, rather than one high stakes exam, to have more smaller forms of assessment that's lower stake, and also to allow for a test before that's a dummy test. So the students can also get a sense of how it feels to take a quiz online. But yes, I think having done that once maybe makes it easier going forward. Something else that we've also realized is if you have issues around academic integrity or a kind of honesty statement you want students to make, that can be the first question in a quiz, where somebody has to confirm that they'll be honest and then go from there. But I mean, we all trust our students completely. So is there anybody else that had an assessment experience? There we go, Champagne.
Yes, thank you, Mine. Change in the term of assessment is better because even social interaction has been reduced, but students have improved more on self-study, self-research, independent learning, and they improve themselves on using technology. And also, even it is online, but it still provides more practical to students.
Sure, what a good point that we haven't yet made is the fact that we're learning to use technologies in a better way, and we're learning to do self-disciplined and self-regulated learning, which is more like the real world of work. So that's a very good point, Champagne. Thank you. Alan, over to you for the next question.
Yes, thank you, Mine. This is a quality assurance forum, and so it's important for us to ask questions as well regarding the quality of education in an online modality. And fortunately, that was asked actually by our audience. So do you think there is still quality education in online teaching learning that you experience compared to the traditional face-to-face class? And if you think there is quality in the kind of education that you receive online, what do you think are the quality indicators that you expect from the school and the faculty to maintain quality instruction in particular? Anyone? So you're getting assessment, there are different strategies, but do you think there is quality in all of those things that are being put forward to you by your lecturers, or the overall design of the activities, for instance? Yes, Mariana.
Hi, thank you for the question. I believe that in terms of content and the quality of the content taught in the classes, it didn't change much because the professors tried to keep with the quality and their curriculum as it was. And also in a lot of classes there was a lot of engagement from students as well. So I believe that the quality didn't fall, didn't get lower. And with some exceptions, for example, with classes that were too long, that the attention span would get lower and that would be harmful for the learning process. But I believe that in general, the quality kept up in the online world that we're living now. And I believe that continuing with that online environment together with the traditional in-presence teaching, it will be very beneficial for the whole learning process to everybody.
So it's actually it's only the modality that has actually changed, but the curriculum is still the same. And as you were saying, quality is still there. Anyone else who would like to pitch in and answer in that? Santi, go ahead, Santi.
Okay. I think in terms of quality, it can be the same. You can maintain the quality of teaching and learning, even though we have to change online. But I think the most advantage point of the online is you can include a different kind of medias and contents and different things into one place that student can use. So if like you can use the video, you can use the lecture, you can use the reading articles and something like that, and mix up everything together and then give them time to study it by themselves with the guides, and then you put them on assignments to make sure that they can use all of the modalities and contents to put it together to be an assignment. I think it will be matched to the 21st century students that they would like to do with the different kind of medias to complete an assignment. That would be a good way to do. And also, it would be the best if we can also make a channel for them to socialize, because they can, when they use the media and then they keep up with something, they can make themselves up, and then they want to share with other people, they can share too. So it would be a very good way to make online teaching and learning have very high quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Santi. I cannot agree more that quality is still very important, regardless of the modality. Minei, can we move on to the next question? I think we still have some more minutes for the Q&A. Thank you.
Yes, we have a couple of minutes left. We've been speaking about how our attention drops when we watch the screen, but I still find this very interesting. So I'm still with you there. I would like to pose the next question on behalf of a student. So it's a student asking other students, and it's something I would love to learn from you as well. Jean-Pierre, you also mentioned that we need to, we are learning to learn in a more self-regulated and self-disciplined way. But from all of you, this student is saying that they find they're struggling to keep up. That time management, which Santi has mentioned a couple of times, managing your workload is difficult. So this shift to doing it all on your own online. Do you have any practical tips on how you've manage your own time, manage your own deadlines and workload, because you've gone through the experience now?
Yes, for me, after the shift, I manage my time management by, I have my own schedule. I set to-do list every day because I am working and learning at the same time. So I need to manage well on my time management. Mostly I spend at the night time on my study, because during the work time I have no time to study.
Very good point.
Yes.
There's nothing as good as a good to-do list. I always find if I stress before I go to sleep and I find there's still on deadlines, you can relax if you know it's at least written down for tomorrow morning first thing. Any other colleagues or panelists? Mariana.
Hey, thank you for the question. What I think the struggling to keep up with the content and the time management, I think it's a problem for all of the students. And what I try to do in my own time management is to have a routine schedule written down from the whole week, and more overview of what's going to happen the whole week and how I divide my hours during the day, because I also work and study and have other activities. So it's important for me to have this very well structured. And I also, sometimes it can be a little frustrating, but I also try to multitask. sometimes, like Santi mentioned before, doing exercise while hearing, listening to some class online that is asynchronous. And also I try to keep the distractions aside, because with online learning, we have all of the distractions that we need right in front of us while studying at the same time. So it's sometimes hard to keep those distractions aside. So I tried, for example, to mute my phone for 3 hours at least, or not open any windows in the computer while I'm doing studying or working. So yeah, I think for me it's those critical points that I use.
Such good practical ones. And I find as well, if you just close all the other tabs, don't allow yourself to go down the internet rabbit hole for a while, that helps. And I'm with you there, Mariana. I've done yoga during an online meeting as well once before. Sometimes you just have to do something while you work or study. So I'd like to, is there any of the others that have something to share with us?
Yeah.
Yes, Santi, because you're a working student as well.
Yeah, and also because as you might well know that in Bangkok the traffic is really bad. So I usually divided contents and assignments into two parts. So one part that I can do it while I'm multitasking, like I'm commuting to work. I've get stuck in the traffic. I could just listen to the contents that I might be missing, and I can leave all the assignments that I can do it when I have time and it's quiet enough. So try to download stuff and contents into my phones, and then I can put it into headphones and then drive to work, something like that. It will be easier for me to manage the time. Yeah.
Very good. So you block off times that you know you're going to be almost like a captive audience, and you have to listen to that podcast. You're sitting in traffic anyway. I like the idea of blocking off times. So something, but we should also block off time to step away from the screen. A colleague mentioned to me yesterday she blocks off an hour in a day where she just walks outside, and I think that's also good. Otherwise, I think it's very stressful for students just to stare at a screen the whole day. But this has given me idea that when we onboard our students and lecturers about how to use a LMS or an online platform, we should also onboard people about what it means to learn and teach online. And there's things like time management that we have to learn. So a little resource on that might be very useful for all of us when we get started for the first time. Alan, do we still have time for one more question?
I think just one last question. Yeah. There is this very interesting question in terms of improving or enhancing communication or interaction between the students in an online platform. So in your opinion, how could the interaction between students online, including more informal communication, be enhanced? And do you have any positive examples to share with us? We can probably ask two of our panelists in that regard. Anyone who would like to answer? Yes, Farah.
All right. So as Santi has mentioned, there's a lot of time, which is creating a platform for communication. So what my university do, we have like a specific Telegram channel for it's called Violet. So we have two kinds of Violet. First is specifically for students, and the other one it focuses more on the staffs and the lecturers. So the students, so usually in the group, in the Telegram group for Violet for students, they will be admined by staffs that is in charge of the teaching and learning center. So usually if students have any questions, they will ask inside, and then they can give out suggestions and what to do and stuff like that. And it's the same thing applies for the other channel, which is specifically for staffs. So in there, they also share problems and suggestions on how to encounter all these problems and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, maybe you can create a Telegram group and WhatsApp group, but I really like Telegram group because I see that even if you just join the group, you can see the previous chats. So like if you do it on a WhatsApp chat, if you just entered the group, you cannot see the previous chat. So you don't know what happened before, right? So I think Telegram is one channel that is very good for communication.
I'll keep that in mind, Farah, for my graduate students. Anyone else for last answer to that question? I saw two hands, but I guess I'll give this to Nicolette. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So in my university, we actually use WhatsApp group, but thanks to Farah, now I know that Telegram application is actually a bit more useful and a bit more effective, because with WhatsApp group we cannot see what's going on before we actually enter the group chat. So yeah, I think using a group with friends and teacher is actually very good, because we can ask questions directly and they can answer, and maybe we can discuss more topics. And so yeah, I think it's very beneficial.
Mariana, I'll give you time. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicolette.
I believe that one thing that could be done from the students' part, but also maybe the university trying to engage more students together, is to try to organize study groups between only the students, so they can, at the same time that they study together, also socialize a little bit and share experiences as well. And the idea of a message application group that Farah mentioned, I think is very beneficial as well. It could be an option as well, or even Zoom meetings just as social meetings, instead of focus on study, but also in the social side.
All right. Okay. So there you have it. Thank you. Thank you very much for all those beautiful responses. And I'm sure that our participants, both here in the Zoom and those who are watching us in the live feed, have gotten something good out of this sharing. So we would like to once again thank our panelists, Mariana, Farah, Santi, Champai, and Nicolette, for sharing your thoughts and your experiences. And on my end, I'd like to thank the organizer for having me as one of the moderators. It's been my pleasure. Minay, any last words?
No, just a big thanks from my side to the organizers, to the panelists. Your universities are very lucky to have you. You're absolute assets to them, of course. And then to everybody that joined, your questions are so thoughtful. They really, even though we can answer all of them, they really show the need for more dialogue on this, and I appreciate that as well.
Thank you very much. It has been a very interesting conversation. Wow. Thank you very much to all our panelists, Champai, Nicolette, Santi, Farah, and Mariana. And of course, thank you so much to our moderators for an excellent job. And thank you so much to all our participants for being with us today. We'd like to request you please to answer our very quick survey. You can see the link now on your screen. It's just a very quick survey with a very few questions, and also you can see the link in your chat at the moment. Thank you very much. You've been such a great audience. Thank you very much. As you are doing this survey, we'd also like to invite you on September 30 for our series 3, that is Going Digital, Assuring Quality in Assessment. So we'd also like to thank University of Potsdam in Germany, our host. And of course, thank you so much to all our working committee members. Great job, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. And see you on September 30, everyone, for our series 3.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.